turn this thing on, and then it decides to turn itself off. Electronics test me every day. This morning I got in my office, and for some reason, evidently overnight, the computer decided to turn itself off, not normally, and so it took a half an hour for it to come back on. For all there, I was wondering if we weren't going to have a sermon at all. Now you would have had something, it would have been disjointed, but then again, you might not notice the difference. So as you know, I like to read commentaries. I research places and things, and I wonder about Jesus' journey, what it means for us today. So as I was writing this sermon, I got lost. I got lost in a bunch of little stories about one tangent that led to another, that led to one surprise, to another surprise, and then it dawned on me. This little story has a few surprises in itself. This story of Zacchaeus is found only in Luke's Gospel. And taking the story at face value, well, it raises a few questions. Why is Zacchaeus so interested in Jesus? How does Jesus know Zacchaeus' name? What transpired to prompt Zacchaeus to make such an excessive restitution to the poor and to the victims he may have defrauded? When is Zacchaeus' speech in Luke 19:8 made? Is it on the way to his house? Or is it after Jesus' visit? Is it before some lesson was taught, or is it the lesson itself? So many questions, and I confess probably none of them will be answered. I don't know, maybe one or two. So, who is this Zacchaeus? We are all told he is more than just a tax collector. He is the chief tax collector. And because the lucrative production and export of balsam was centered in Jericho, his position would have carried both importance and wealth. So here he is, a wealthy, influential man in the very rich city of Jericho. The town is massively rich. It's a vacation spot for the rich and famous, literally. At the time of Jesus, Jericho was known as the Oasis City. In fact, Herod the Great built his winter palace near here because of its warm climate and fresh water springs. Now, I find it hard to believe that anybody out there in that part of the world needs a summer palace. The Bible describes Jericho as a city of palm trees. Since Jericho catered to the rich and the powerful during the time of Jesus, homeless outcasts often lined the streets and the roads in and out of town because it was a good place to encounter the well-to-do traders and political elites. It's interesting, like I mentioned in the children's sermon, it isn't much, a few paragraphs before that Jesus encounters an affluent ruler, a man well-to-do, rich even. He's not named. When inquired how to enter heaven, Jesus lays out the basic rules, and the man says, I do all those things. And he seems not content. It seems like he wants to do more. So Jesus invites him to go further, to sell his possessions, to give the money to the poor, at which he becomes very sad and walks away. This is where Jesus tells us how difficult it is for the rich to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle. Now, we are literally just 4 paragraphs later, and it seems we're about to thread that needle. One commenter puts it this way: the man's name will give us a clue. It is an abbreviation of Zechariah. The Lord has remembered. So despite the fact that so much is going against him as an affluent tax collector, we feel optimistic about the outcome of the story. There is some comedy being played out as well. I mean, it's obvious to us, even today, not much explanation is needed when you see one of the most rich, influential people in town sees Jesus, and he can't see him because he's too short. And so he scrambles up a tree like a child waiting to see a parade go by. There's nothing graceful about it. And if you consider some of the clothes that people wore those days, I'm not sure you want to be under the tree with Zacchaeus' subject. He was trying to see Jesus. He wondered, which one is he? So he didn't know who Jesus was. And he couldn't see because of the crowd. And though being rich and influential, nobody moved aside for him, and he didn't try to push anyone aside. Here's a big, rich, influential man, and yet just picture him jumping up and down. He climbs up a tree. Imagine the sight of one of the richest, most influential people in town, scrambling up a tree like a child, excited to see a parade pass by. And then Jesus stops right under that tree, looks up, and all are expecting Jesus to scold the man or rebuke him. But instead, Jesus calls him by name. The man didn't know who Jesus was, but Jesus knows who he is. He is so famous, maybe Jesus was told who he is, maybe it was pointed out to him. Maybe Jesus knew ahead of time. Perhaps it was just Jesus' Spirit working well that day. We don't know. That's another question that's never answered. Now, can you imagine this man's excitement? I mean, Jesus is one of the most famous people around at this time. And he looks up to him and says, I'm going to your house today. I'm going to your house today. Jesus says, I'm going to your house today. I'm not sure I'd be prepared for Jesus to come to my house any day. Even when I prepare it for guests and friends, I'm not sure that would meet the minimum requirement for me to welcome Jesus into my house. Jesus looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, quick, down you come, because today I must stay in your house. There seems to be an earnest in Jesus' command. Now I will note that the translations I'm using are from a direct translation of the original text, or as original as we have, as opposed to the NIV version. You'll hear the differences. What happens next is totally amazing to me. Zacchaeus hurries down, maybe even swung from a branch and leapt down, and he joyfully gave him hospitality. He wasn't put out. He wasn't upset. He didn't panic. He joyfully welcomed him into his house. He didn't try to impress. What would you do to try and see just which person in the crowd was Jesus? How would you know? I wonder how many times Jesus has walked right by us, or we walked right by Christ and did not even know which person they were. Just wondering. A few more questions. I also wonder how many here have heard Jesus call them by name. What did that voice sound like? Did we know at the time it was the voice of God, or not so much later? Hindsight, y'all. It's easy to see where God plays in our lives or moves us in directions that we, on our own, may not have chosen to go. When we did hear that call of Jesus, the call to ministry, did we answer joyfully? Were we prepared to offer joyful hospitality? Or did we maybe grumble and set about our duty? Did we put conditions on the call or bargain with God? I did. When God put on my heart it was time to go back to seminary and to study to become a preacher, my heart said one thing, my mind went, you're kidding. I was living a good, fair, easy life. I was making my rent. I had groceries. I had friends. I didn't need a car to walk everywhere. It was sunny Palm Springs. It was 120 degrees in the summer, but that's what swimming pools are for. So I made a bargain. I'll apply to one school. There it is. So I myself begrudgingly went back to school. I hated school. But this time there was something different. This time there was something on my heart, and it did become such a joyous experience. Not only did I go for 1 degree, I ended up getting 2. Jesus called him by name and said, I'm going to your house. What a blessing. I'd like to think I would be like, oh, congratulations, tell me about it after he is gone. But No, the people around him weren't all excited for him. They grumbled. They complained. He had gone into the house of a sinner. Who proclaimed him a sinner? Who call is it to make? Is he a sinner just because he's a chief tax collector? Taxes were reviled by the Jews of Jesus' day because of their perceived greed and collaboration with Roman occupiers. But how often can perception be skewed by our own prejudice? In the direct translation to the hearing of these groaning, Zacchaeus says, "Look, Lord, I am giving half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I'm giving it back fourfold." It's present tense, not I will. I am. He's already walking the walk. He is doing what he's called to do in spite of the grumblers and the deniers around him. Unlike the NSRV, the action is in the present tense in spite of what people believe. This man is walking the walk, giving his possessions, half of them, to the poor. If someone can show he has defrauded them, he gives back interest fourfold. That's above and beyond the call of duty. They're only required to make restitution equally. Then Jesus proclaims loud and clear for all to hear, "Salvation has come unto the house of Zacchaeus. He is a son of Abraham." There is almost a little bit of how dare you with that. He is just as justified and one of the children of God as you are. He is a member of the family, even though the family had sent him as an outsider. Jesus proclaims that the outsider is in. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Right there in that story. Though that line is not attached to it. It's a little bit obvious. We don't often think of the rich and the affluential as being the last. But that is because we judge. As I said in the last sermon, it's because we divide. We have chosen who is us and who is them. It's hard not to do so, but we are called to be we, whether they're outside that door or inside this door. Jesus said it would be harder for a rich man to enter into the heaven than for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle, and yet here we stand, and Jesus has just threaded that needle. Actually, Zacchaeus threaded that needle. Jesus just pointed it out. When we look at Zacchaeus and the rich ruler, the similarities, but mainly the contrast between the two characters are remarkable. Remarkable. Particularly regarding the matter of wealth. The idolatry of one versus the freedom of the other. The sadness of the one versus the joy of the other. Zacchaeus' response to Jesus illustrates that the miracle can occur, that the wealthy can gain freedom from possessions that possess them. Just as the blind come to see, the lame come to walk, the demon-possessed to be restored, and the dead to be made alive. There is an old hymn that says, "I sought the Lord, and afterwards I knew, He moved my soul to seek Him, seeking me. It was not that I found the Savior true, no, I was found of Thee." So, I've asked many questions throughout this sermon, and most are going to remain unanswered by me. For each of us must choose how we respond when Jesus calls us by name. When Jesus invites Himself into our house, it doesn't matter what others think of you. It doesn't even matter what you think of you. How we respond to Jesus is what matters. Do we respond joyfully, offering hospitality, or do we walk away sad? I guess the basic question that has yet to be answered can only be answered by each one of us individually. Are you going to let Jesus thread that needle?